fairly decent start to make that 3 in a row. But, and it's a rather big but, Brazil and Serbia are also in Group G. They'll be playing later on this evening. That's a 7 o'clock game as well. And it was very even for large parts of that, but did Switzerland in the end start to kind of maybe move away a little bit?
I think they did. From the start of that second half, we saw them doing something they didn't do much in the first half, which was getting forward in wide areas. That's where the goal came from. And then I think everything shifts. Switzerland were able to sit back and kind of defend the lead that they had. Cameroon just didn't have the guile and the cleverness to create any opportunities. And the longer the half went on, albeit only a 1-0 scoreline, there was an element of comfort to the Switzerland performance. Really good start. It's a clean sheet. It's a win. It's 3 points. No injuries we know about. So it's the perfect start for them. But an unimpressive first half performance was bettered certainly by a much more improved second half performance.
There's some nice pictures there of Breel and Bolo, the goal scorer, born in Cameroon. His mother moved him and the rest of his siblings over to Switzerland when they were only children to give them a better life. His father still lives over there in Cameroon, and you could see there was definitely a bit of passion there, and he was going around hugging having scored the goal that gave them yet another World Cup defeat.
Really, really tough. He obviously would have roads of relations, family, everything still in Cameroon. He is I suppose in his heart he is Cameroonian, you know, and to play against them and score the only goal in the game. They were the only ones looked like scoring. It was a great move, the best move of the game by far. Two midfielders linked up, Xhaka and Freuler. Great ball out wide. Shaqiri puts a lovely ball in. He just holds his run. Nothing special about it, just holds his run. You know, a little bit of movement. Make sure he gets good contact on it. 12th international goal, I think. And he's streaky with goals, but now that he's starting the World Cup, goal in the first game could set him off.
He did the non-celebration celebration. We're used to seeing that in club games when you score a goal against the team you used to play for. Some of your torn, am I allowed to celebrate this? Do I rub it in the nose of my former supporters of my old team? You don't usually see it in international football.
You'd understand it for your country. I don't understand it at club level.
Club level, I've never got to play for a second club, but to score in to play against your country of birth must, first of all, be a tricky thing, but to do it in a World Cup and then to score a goal against them, that's the one time I would understand the player kind of calming down his reaction a little bit.
And to put it into context, because Mbolo, he's had a few little run-ins, just little ones, you know, sort of disciplinary issues while he was a young man playing professional football, but he's still very much so loved. He's even set up a foundation. When he was only 18, he set up a foundation to help refugees coming into Switzerland adapt to life as well. So he's very much so taken to the hearts of the Swiss people too. Yeah,
you know, you don't mind that. Showed great maturity to do that at 18 years of age, and I don't mind the few indiscretions. I think it was maybe driving related and COVID-19 related. He's a young man. He's in his, these would happen when he was in his late teens, early 20s. Just normal stuff growing up. The fact he's a footballer, it happens. You know, it doesn't make it any different when you're a footballer. You're still young and a bit stupid at times. You have to grow up, and he looks like he's maturing, and his teammates look like they love him. He looks like a nice guy. He's going around the pitch smiling, happy. Things you want to see.
Did you see enough from Switzerland there to make you think, because we opened it up earlier on saying this is going to be a really, really tough group. So they've got the initial 3 points, so they're off the mark. But do they look like they could challenge Brazil or Serbia?
I think the key thing was the win, first of all. I don't think that first half performance will trouble anyone in the latter stages of this tournament. And the second half, as comfortable as it was against a Cameroon team that lacked ideas and lacked an edge. Again, I don't know if you're going to play a team like that in the latter stages, but they're putting themselves in a very good position now to get what we assume is the spot available in this group, which is the runners-up. Brazil might surprise us, but we'll assume that Brazil will be the one going to win this group. But at the moment, it was a good start. It's tournament football. You don't have to hit your heights in the first game. You have to win. And in a group like this, it's essential you win, because it's kind of very open. It's probably the most open on paper, most difficult to predict with any kind of certainty what's going to happen. So it's a good start, not a wildly impressive start.
You may notice that that's going to be a trend over the next few days, this little asterisk every time somebody says, because this team is definitely going to top the group. Richie mentioned that Cameroon didn't really look like they were going to do anything in the second half. They had a couple of chances, did they not?
Yeah, Johan, they were brutal, to be honest with you. They were decent enough in the first half and they're good on the counter-attack, but once Switzerland sat in a bit more, it made it really difficult. One of our best players here, Moting, or not best player today, but one that showed a few bright sparks, this was in the second half. Two sort of, not even, we wouldn't call them anything, even half chances. This one was an Anguissa header from a Camby cross, that was it. I think You see the picture of their manager there, Rigobert Song. We couldn't understand his substitution.
Subs, yeah.
You know, first of all, the subs, you think you're going to get an impact, and it killed the game for them. They went worse. But when you've taken off Motang and bringing on Abubakar, in fairness to Abubakar, I understood that substitution, 33 international goals, a fabulous record internationally. He scored 8 goals in the African Nations Cup only last year. So a striker you want to bring on when you need a goal, but you took off then one of the hottest informed strikers in Europe, and Motang it made no sense whatsoever, and they thought you can't play them together. But you can play them together for the last 10 minutes when you're desperate for a goal. And yeah, strange decision. And when he did come on, Abubakar didn't touch the ball, from what I can see. They didn't, in fairness, not his fault, didn't create anything. It looked like there was no urgency from them. They were really poor, and they talked about before on Samuel Eto'o about favourites going to win the World Cup, best African team here. Didn't look a patch on Senegal to me, or Tunisia even. They looked ahead of them to me. They created more, both of those teams. These looked.
That's not a Cameroon team that are going to do anything in this tournament.
No, you wouldn't.
For all the talk from Eto'o or wherever they are in the ranking in Africa, you produce performances like that, you're going to go nowhere in this tournament.
So we keep talking about Samuel Eto'o. We must remind people that he's not the manager, he's the president of the Cameroonian Federation, but we don't know how much involved he is.
Well, he picked the manager only 6 months ago and they weren't happy.
Well, he claims the Cameroonian president insisted it must be Rigobert Song.
But even that, let's say that's the truth. Why is a country's president having a say, let alone the deciding vote?
Well, it goes against FIFA rules for one.
That, but also, if you have a properly functioning FA, bring it to this country. Ring in Michael D, say who should we appoint? He wouldn't be in the room, he wouldn't be consulted in any proper functioning FA. He shouldn't be.
He knows his soccer though, Michael D.
I was going to say.
He might know.
But you know what I mean? It's come on, a bit more.
Yeah, and even Samuel Eto'o, a superstar player, very rich man, you'd imagine. If someone's ringing you saying, I want this manager, wouldn't you just resign your job? I'm not doing this job if you were telling me who I select as manager.
Well, we're not entirely sure. The Federation did say that it was coming from the president, but we're pretty sure Samuel Eto'o and Rigobert Song would be quite close, obviously, as well. So there's definitely something happening in there. But just a reminder, Rigobert Song's managerial experience coming into this is underage with the team. Now, Stephen Kenny's international managerial experience, obviously going into the Ireland job, was under 21 level as well.
Yeah, but there was European experience there with Dundalk. There was they're not comparing like for like, but it was the appointment. It was the possible personal relationship which influenced this. Samuel Eto'o, obviously, being Cameroonian born was a key factor, but the performance he gave us as the coach of the under-21s or the 23s was unimpressive. They didn't qualify for the Olympics. He didn't make his mark. So sometimes you can come from a younger age group up, but you can go, well, that's why. I can get why he's appointed, because if he reproduces what he did with that lot, we're laughing. But he didn't have that. He didn't even have that in his CV. So
the previous manager as well was sacked while things were going well. It wasn't through
he got them to third in the African Cup of Nations. He brought them to the playoffs for the World Cup.
He did really well and got sacked. And then you see, Rigobert Song could be a great or not a great manager on the evidence today, and some of the questionable substitutions and the performance after the substitutions, you would say he got it really wrong today.
Well, you mentioned Abubakar. So Abubakar has this great record. Now, are we talking big personalities here? Because Choupo-Moting, he'd be the form man at the moment. You said they should have been both playing up there when they were chasing a goal. If people are thinking, where did I hear the name Abubakar? He famously came out earlier this year and said, I can do what Mo Salah can do. I don't know why everybody goes on about him. I'm not that impressed. So there could be a big personality and egos thing in there.
Well, there clearly is. If you're, what were those quotes? He kind of said,
I'm not that impressed.
He's no
Mbappe, but then again, who is?
He kind of said, well, I could deliver in that way if I was in the same kind of team or playing at the same level. So he was kind of like, what's all the fuss about? Which is an extraordinary thing to say about someone like Mo Salah, particularly when you're at the level he's at. But clearly, I would suggest there is a healthy ego there.
There might be an ego or two. Funnily enough, we keep expecting things from Cameroon. They actually haven't gone past the group stage since the famous Roger Mila days. But of course, it's Switzerland who were the team who came up and did have the victory. much, much better in the second half. And in fairness, they probably should have had more than one goal.
They should have done. I mean, they nearly added to their goal with a phase of play almost exactly the same as us. And they had some kind of chances throughout the game, but they were kind of comfortable. They were in control, helped by the substitutions. This is it, absolute replica of the goal. It's Vargas there, but just on this occasion, the goalkeeper was able to save. There's really good kind of clearing tackle from Anguissa. Seferovic, who had come on in the second half, almost gets on the end of this. It's ball delivered by Reader. So they're starting to do things they didn't do in the first half, which was get in behind them. Xhaka, we spoke about him beforehand. This is the one occasion he troubled the goalkeeper. You'd expect the keeper to save this, which he did relatively comfortably. And Seferovic then at the end, like of the two teams, you think maybe there's a second goal here for Switzerland as opposed to Cameroon. But Castelletto did well here to somehow use his backside there to stop the shot going on target. So good performance in the second half for Switzerland. They didn't have to be great once they got the goal. They were kind of in cruise mode then. So important start.
Just before we look ahead to the second game in that group, Xhaka, you mentioned there, he wasn't in it at all in the first half, just came a little bit more into the second half, but surely we'd expect to see a lot more from him in this World Cup.
Spoke about his frustration in the first half, not with himself, I suppose, with his teammates and how they were getting done on the counter-attack. Second half, he came out and he was involved in the key moment in the game, the two midfielders, in passing out wide and across in the box. He looked more in control, he looked happier, looked calmer, like the whole Switzerland team. They played in the second half like you sort of expected them to. Nothing too flashy, nothing brilliant, but just a solid sort of, I don't want to call him boring, but just what we've seen in
the... was the word that Richie
No,
used.
listen, I'd love to be boring. I'd love Ireland to be boring like them or to play like them and be there and be beating teams in it. So it's harsh to call them that, I suppose, but just a decent enough side without being spectacular in any department.
But I think that's the focus in the dressing room now will be, we won. We got the 3 points, we didn't concede a goal. There was no downside to today. A couple of aspects of the first half performance that would be disappointed with, but it's tournament football. Like, it's not all about performances. In your first game, it's not about performances at all. It's about the result, particularly in this group. So it's a good start for them.
Particularly in this group, because it's Brazil and Serbia are two of the other teams, and they're the 7 o'clock game this evening. Now, I know you're looking forward to seeing what Neymar might have to do about it. I think Irish fans are probably very interested to see what Serbia might do against the team so many are expecting to win.
Yeah, listen, we obviously know that. How many times have we played them in the last few years? Serbia are a very good side. You hate writing them off against any team of what the results we've seen in the last few days, but Brazil and their starting 11, even Neymar coming into the tournament, coming into the last World Cup, it seemed to be everything was about him. He's sort of, I don't know, calling them under the radar or whatever.
Neymar.
Yeah, no, but
there's a lot of focus.
It seems to be a little bit less than normal, I feel. I don't know, maybe because they're starting later in the tournament and, you know, everyone's just talking about the first few games, Mbappe and Messi and all that. And Neymar, for as big as he is, and obviously there's focus on, doesn't seem to be the same, you know, everything is about him. And, you know, I'm really intrigued to see how he goes in this tournament. He's been playing well at club level.
He's been brilliant.
Yeah.
He's in brilliant form.
I'd love to see him come into this and just light up the World Cup. Fabulous player, can do anything. But the whole Brazilian team, like I was going through their starting 11, just their forward line, Rafinha, Vinicius, Neymar, Richarlison, strong at the back, Casemiro in midfield. They just go through the team and it's hard to see too much of a weakness.
Neymar is... I think the stakes are so high for him personally. Because now we're in this weird world where, you know, if Argentina don't do well, we'll hold Messi personally responsible. And Neymar's the same with Brazil. And I think he's in the area of his career now, the stage of his career, where it's kind of about the creation of his legacy. Is he going to be someone who just raked up a load of caps, a load of goals, loads of brilliant individual moments, had a club career that is at odds with his personal ambitions? There was no Ballon d'Or. There's kind of no Champions League since he left Barcelona. He hasn't lit up PSG and dominated that club the way he would have hoped he did.
It's kind of hard to dominate in that lineup.
Exactly. So he went there thinking, right, I'm out of Messi's shadow, I'm the main man. And he very quickly kind of fell into Mbappe's shadow and then now the arrival of Messi. So it's all on this tournament, I think, in terms of what he's going to be remembered by the Brazilian public in terms of being a Brazil international. He's 3 goals, I think, away from beating Pele's record. Not being dismissive of that, But to light up a World Cup and to be the main man in them lifting the World Cup, that puts him in the status with the Brazilian greats. And I think if he was to have the disappointing tournament, I don't think he would be.
Kevin, how often did you practice goal celebrations just out of interest? The reason I'm asking you this, I can imagine it loads, hours.
If you were to look back on them now, you wouldn't think I practiced them too much, or some very random ones there. My son practiced his ones more than I ever practiced mine. He's only 9. Yeah, where are we going with this?
I was going to say,
yes, but we don't have something to see, but we might if they score goals, because Rafinha has come out and said they've practiced 10 choreographed dances to celebrate if they score.
Don't celebrate, and don't admit that publicly. Yeah. Don't set yourselves up. 10 celebrations.
Listen, maybe they're that confident in their ability, they don't have to be practicing other things, they can concentrate on celebrations, but we didn't have the time.
I wouldn't even be able to think up of 10.
No.
I want to see it.
What was the one where they went?
That's someone had a kid, or
that's Romario.
No, wasn't that Romario, Bebeto,
and There's 94, America.
Yeah, that was the key one for me for Brazil. That's when I was.
I don't think there was much practice or choreographing going into that, was there?
It was the start of the celebration, sort of, Brazilian, when it affected me at 10 years of age, where I got influenced.
Maybe in Brazilian football you can get away with things like that. Maybe that part of the game is celebrated.
Well, it's all part of their freedom and their expression, isn't it?
I'm just thinking of, let's say, an Irish player coming out and say that. Callum Robinson or one of the lads.
We're not going to have 10 goals.
How's camp been? It's been brilliant. We've been doing all these choreographed dances to celebrate the goals which are about to come. We wouldn't take to that very well in this country.
We could just get 1 goal in one celebration, be doing well.
Sign of their confidence, though, isn't it? Because there is this big pressure. There's always pressure on Brazil in the World Cup. There does seem a bit more this time, despite the fact that they have continually struggled against the European sides.
Yeah, like Argentina, I suppose you're sort of struggling to get a gauge on where they are right now because they have lack of games against European teams and teams we know better, I suppose. But they're 11, like they all play in Europe. We know how they're playing. We know they're all really good players. They're practicing all those celebrations because of the amount of players they have that can score goals. Fabulous goalkeeper as well in Alisson. Talking him up here, aren't I, massively?
Brilliant in qualifying, didn't get beaten. There's lots of reasons you would, in addition to the quality of the team, but the form they've been in, they look at the group and think they're winnable games.
Yeah, but that is it. We keep going back to this. But is it more like with France the other day? Despite the players that they've lost, you just see the sheer volume of top quality players. Yeah. Is it something similar to Brazil? And in many ways, are they the only real 2 teams? You might throw England maybe into that mix for having just a number of top quality players.
Top players and pace. France had, watching how Saudi Arabia played against Argentina, say. And that's where you're a bit cagey because everyone so expected Argentina to do well and got caught out. So you're afraid to totally commit on Brazil. But say France playing Australia, Australia put people behind the ball, thought they were going to soak it up, but they have Mbappe, they have pace. Argentina don't have that pace. I think Brazil do have that pace up front. They have enough pace to make it, whether you press them high, they have pace over the top, whether you sit back, players who can dribble. So it makes it very difficult. Against Argentina, I felt Saudi Arabia could go out and press them high and they felt, we're not going to get really done here. They don't have out and out blistering pace. And that's the difference, I think, between Argentina and Brazil.
Just before we move on to our next live game, will Brazil beat Serbia tonight?
I would think so. Obviously, it's caveat being,
everything,
it's football
and
it has been surprise results. But from what I would have seen from Serbia in the qualifiers, you would imagine a team going to the World Cup with expectations or hopes of winning it should be able to beat them.
You're not tipping an upset?
No, I don't think so.
OK, well, you never know. That's been said all week so far. There's been plenty of people getting predictions wrong.